Constantine, a Hellblazer podcast.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hell Talk. Once again, I am joined by my illustrious co-host, Hoku.
Hi, everybody.
And today we are going through Hellblazer issues 110 through 117. And this was kind of a little bit shorter than we normally do. Normally we do like 9 or 10 issue chunks. But I just thought this was like a good stopping point because there was kind of a big, important story arc, or at least one of the bigger story arcs from the Paul Jenkins run in here. And I thought, I'm not sure how much we'll talk about it, depending on how much either of us have to say about it. But, this might be a shorter episode. But I just thought like this was a good starting and stopping place, especially since we had just read, or we just went through, Hell Talk issues, what was it? Or Hellblazer issues 101 through 109 before. And that had a lot of like single issue stories to get through and thoughts about those. So I figured this one could be a little bit of a more concise episode. So first off, I'll ask, what'd you think of this whole first story arc, which is all about like Arthurian legend? What'd you think about this King Arthur's storyline overall?
I'm not a huge King Arthur legend fan, I guess you could say. I've seen the Disney movie, which is not really about King Arthur as it is about his.
Was that Sword in the Stone? Is that what that is?
Yeah, like him as a kid, and then you find out, oh my God, he was Arthur the whole time, and, with Merlin and whatever. So, that was probably my very first introduction to the legend of King Arthur, not realizing now, obviously, there's a book and a whole story, and, that's actually a real story. And then after that, Quest for Camelot, the other animated, not Disney movie, but, the musical, that one was fun. So, and that one you got Pierce Brosnan as King Arthur. So that was great. Fun story. But beyond that, no, it was never really one of those that I was like, yes, I'm so glad he's doing this tale because I love King Arthur or I love the story. No, I wasn't like super, I guess, jazzed about the direction the story went. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's always nice when they do a twist on something that you've at least heard a certain way. So it was all right.
Yeah, I think, I'll say this. I hate Arthurian legend. Like, not that I hate it, but I'm just sick of it. Like, I think I grew up at a time where it was very, in the zeitgeist culturally or whatever. I remember there being like cartoon shows that had like the art, the Knights of the Round Table and all that kind of stuff. Oh
yeah, it was also a really big thing in Gargoyles too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that too.
So okay, yeah. So Gargoyles, Disney, you got the non-Disney movies and stuff. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I just like over time was just like I'm sick of this shit. And I still have that that thought about it.
Oh, this must have been so fun for you then to be like, guess what? It's Merlin, it's King Arthur, it's Knights of the Round Table. And you must have just been like, oh. Yeah,
well, it took about 2 issues for me to realize that. Because, until about where John realizes it, I was just kind of like, what is going on? Like, who are these people? I was just taking them as like, Mirrodin is a new bad guy. Maybe he's a demon or something. I don't know. At first, I was just confused. Like, okay, who are all these people? And then, but once their names came into play, once the Knights of the Round Table came in, and they were like, "Oh, my name's Owain," and whatever their other names were, Sanda. I was like, "Oh, it's Merlin stuff. It's King Arthur."
Oh, I didn't realize that at all. I was just like, who are these guys? Weird, like superpowers and stuff?
It's probably because I was saying the names and you're not reading them. When you read them, they have very specific spellings that make it, I'd have no idea how the fuck they're supposed to be pronounced. I was like, I'm going to say it like this. But like some of them I'm like Glindiferglug. Like I don't know how to fucking say this word or this name.
Well, even
So
still, I mean, I didn't know anyone besides like Lancelot or whatever, and there was no Lancelot in there.
right, right.
So I had no idea they were knights until you mentioned it, and I was like, oh, is that where this is going?
Yeah, well, by the time I read it, I had like I'm talking about the first time I read it, I was like, what the fuck's going on? And then I've read the whole story arc by the time I read it to you guys. So that's why I was like, oh, okay, I know what they're at that point. But and when I recorded it, I knew to say, oh yeah, this is King Arthur in case you didn't know. But yeah, it was just like not it was confusing at first, but one thing I did like, and I enjoyed the Rich of it all. Like the fact that Rich is the heir of King Arthur. And
the literal Rich of it all.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Funny.
Rich is the heir of King Arthur. He is an idiot, but he is when they talk about him, they're like, he does represent our country well. Like it makes sense that he would be the next heir or whatever. I was like, that's funny. So like the humor in this really made me enjoy it more than I thought I would, especially when I realized it's like a 5 or 6 issue arc. I was like, oh, come on, Arthurian shit. And then also it wasn't only Arthurian shit. They added like God stuff into it, like Christianity.
That was surprising. I hadn't expected that juxtaposition of religion with like legend. Is Arthurian legend really steeped in Christianity or Catholicism or, Western beliefs? Do you know?
I don't know.
Huh. Me neither.
And I can't imagine that it is the way they at least show it in this, because I've never heard that. And it is in the zeitgeist so much, and Christianity, isn't in America enough that I would assume if they're adapting these stories and it was like, God created these people first. Well, maybe not, because it is a little bit sacrilegious too, because it's going against the Bible. Yeah, maybe that's why. I don't think so. But if I had to guess, he made up that part of it. Like these were kind of like Lilith's story, where it's like she was the first wife of Adam, and like that's not in the Bible, so they never talk about her. But then like shows will, like Supernatural or other shows will like mention her and stuff. So I'm like, oh, okay, like so it's like lore you can go from, but I've never heard that like, oh, Merlin and the Knights of the Round Table were created by God first, and then kind of like angels but on Earth, and then so they're like immortal, and then he made humans and he liked humans more. Like that was all new to me, I think.
It's an interesting twist for them to push really heavy on the sort of religious aspects or religious origins even of these characters. I wasn't expecting that. So that was different. And like you said, it made it, I think, a bit more digestible to have sort of like a weird twist on Merlin, I guess, in particular, because he seemed to be the only one, because everyone else was like, these humans just got special powers, right? He was like, I'm one of the special, like, pre-creators.
I think the knights were too.
Were they?
I think the Round Table Knights were as well, I think.
Because I thought when he had them like hanging up and he was like torturing them, he was just like, you guys are just people who like he gifted like these gifts to, like, you're not actually in my class of things.
Oh, maybe I think you're right. I forgot about that.
I thought that's what he was saying. Arthur was just like, I think the first who got his special gifts, and then the rest of them like followed and got them after. And Merlin's just like, what is all this? Like,
yeah, okay.
Why are these people so special? I don't get it. I think that the climax for sure was very unexpected. I think that was my favorite part.
I mean, the story takes its time to build, and then it's like, holy shit, we're at the end. Like that's kind of how it felt. Describing, like, I think issue 3 of it, or the third part of it, was like that's the one where like Rich goes in his own trip with the van to get the box with the head in it. That was like a crazy issue, because I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like the
long quest.
Yeah, it's like he literally has to go on a quest, which I thought was fun, but it's rich, so it made it funny. Yeah, and then like, I mean, John, this was like a big like this whole like plan John comes up with for like, okay, we're gonna take this head we found in the box. It's a talking head. The talking head gave us the idea to boil or like meat for me to cook it and feed his head to my friends. And then they're on board with it because they were pretending to fight. Like, it was a lot to kind of like, I have to go with this, but it was funny. It was like, but you didn't know that when you read it. So like only until the end, when he like does the reveal of all that, did you know like, oh, everybody was in on it. But when you found out that he like fed his friends this head, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts were John has gone too far. I mean, he does a lot of stuff to himself. He will do stuff to protect his friends, but this to me felt like the first time until you found out that they agreed to do it, I guess, that he kind of went past the line of consent to me, where it's like, oh, dude, John, really? Really? This is how far you're willing to go? Why didn't you just, I mean, okay, yeah, you can't just eat him yourself because then you're the only one who's like protected and you're doing to protect your fans, but dude, that's going too far. That's nasty.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, personally, if someone had fed me people and then was like, hey, guess what? You ate people, I would be a lot more upset than everybody was in the issue where they eat him, or like where you see them eat him. I'd have done more than slapped cider. I'll say that.
Oh, yeah, I'd have hit him. I'd have kicked him in the nuts. I'd have, probably gotten physically. Yeah. Yeah, I would, totally not have just been like, so what? Well, now I'm mad. Stomp, stomp, walk away,
Yeah, like him and Danny have like a barely argument about it.
Yeah, they took it surprisingly well, it seems.
Which in retrospect makes sense, but when you read it the first time through, you're like, why is everybody being so calm about this? I mean, people are yelling, but like I would be freaking the fuck out if you were like, I fed you people. And then you find out it was all an act.
Trying to throw up and stuff and
yes. Why is no one convulsively vomiting on the floor? Like,
yeah. Why is no one suddenly like taking some X-Lax or something.
Right,
like, get this out of me.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the hospital.
Drinking
get my
Epicac straight. Yeah. So I thought like some of that was a little bit clunky just because you had to go with it, which made it feel weird when you didn't know that it was, a reveal. The reveal was coming, that they knew about it. And then when you did know, you're like, I felt a little bit cheated. Like, all right, I see what you did there, but I guess I'll go with it. Like that's kind of how I felt at the end. But like, and then the other thing I felt cheated about was like we already have a bunch of friends of that we've established. Even like, was it Lefty or Lofty or whatever that one guy's name is that I can never remember?
Oh, yeah, I forget too.
He doesn't die. Or Muppet, like there's two friends there that could die, but no, they introduce a new friend, Dez, and Dez dies. And so it's like,
does he die? I know he took his arm, but
I thought they said he had like
was that like
funeral or something, or he had to tell his mom.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if that was like a, we'll take more next time sort of threat. Because I mean, if they were just going to kill him, why not show him his head? Or
that's true. I thought they said something about him being dead or something. But either way,
but he must have been if he wasn't part of their group of people eating. So
right, that or the end when he's got all the friends hanging on crosses and stuff, and he wasn't part of that.
He wasn't there. So I guess they did kill him, and then just for dramatic sake, they were like, and here's his hand. Yeah,
proof that he's dead. But like, why introduce this character at all? We have Muppet, we have Lefty, Straff, any of those.
Is it because they needed the guy in the chair again, and none of the other guys could fill that role?
I think that's what it is. They're like, John can't type and doesn't understand the internet. So we need a smarty pants. And they could have had Weevil do it, or Weeble, but like I guess he can't die yet. So, like, because he's important in Widdershins, which is the later arc that we do. So,
And I guess they couldn't just have one of those guys also be a computer guy on the side. Like, oh, yeah, I know how to get on the internet and look for
I
things.
don't
Like,
think anyone believes any of John's friends know anything about the internet. Like, at this point, I mean, this is like AOL days, right? So, like, if you're over the age of 30, you're not learning the internet. Unless you're like a tech guy, which is why they had Dez, I guess. But I don't know. I felt like there had to be other ways. Like, maybe Dez is there, and I don't know. Maybe Dez is just a librarian in Lofty, or, like, it doesn't have to be like a friend that gets his hand cut off or something. It could have been, I don't know, some other way to do it where the other friends die that I don't care about, but are better established. I just thought it was kind of like cheap. And it's just like in horror movies when they're like, this person is important because I'm talking about them right now and they seem like they're going to be real helpful, and then they die and you're like, oh, they were just put there to die because our main like four guys are fine. Yeah, that's how I felt about it. I was kind of like, yeah, all right. Did you have any thoughts about that, about Dez?
I mean, pretty much the same. It felt like, oh, cool, there's another addition to the friend, and he's dead. Oh, oh well. Well, I mean, at first I thought maybe he was just maimed, and then we were going to find out that, he's like, oh, they took my arm or whatever, my hand. How am I supposed to do my hacking anymore?
You can't hack with one hand.
Right? Like, I have to get a fake hand now. So yeah, I thought maybe it wasn't as bad initially, but then he's gone and doesn't come back. So then it's, oh, okay, I guess they did kill him. So yeah, they just brought him in to kill him.
Yeah, I'll say that. I know he doesn't come back in this run because I've finished the run now. So
okay, so yeah, so most likely they brought him in just to serve a purpose and then killed him off because they needed something dramatic to happen. They needed someone to suffer for John to be pushed to do something, dramatic again. And, but yeah, I think any one of the other characters, if they don't really serve a purpose later or aren't bringing something to the table, maybe they could have found a way to have one of them bite it, but oh well.
Yeah. Well, we get Dez introduction and we also get Danny. I mean, she was introduced in the last issue as well. Like the one we did in the last Hell Talk, but
now she's leveled up to girlfriend. So
yeah, now they're
that makes
dating,
her
and
more important.
I know. I mean, this is kind of big and important because, I mean, he hasn't had a girlfriend since Kit, and I know how much you love Kit.
I do love Kit.
So what do you think about
Kit.
John's American girlfriend?
I think she's fun. I liked how brash she was. Her introduction was, sort of out of nowhere. You weren't expecting her. And the way she, was trying to get information out of John just for her article, but also probably she was interested in him as a person enough to hound him for a while. Mm-hmm. So him being like, whoa, this is too much, and then having to leave. And then that werewolf story happened. But then him coming back and obviously meeting up with her again, whether to give her information or just to string her along with pretending like he was going to give her information, but maybe he was actually interested in her. They don't really go into how they started dating. It kind of just happens, right? Like they're just,
it's literally like, here's my phone number if you want to talk about or give me information about the story. And then in the next issue, they're dating, and it's the beginning of this King Arthur story arc. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, take all that out. Maybe they'll save it for like a story down the line of something, but it did sort of just happen suddenly. And so, yeah, at first I'm like, oh, but he has to get over it eventually. And I don't want him to be alone and suffer that way. But there's also that whole, whenever John's happy, bad shit happens. So it's, it's kind of a juxtaposition of, well, he's lonely and he's sad, and that's sad, but people are safer. And now oh no, he's getting happy. And even he's like, I'm happy again. Oh shit, what's going to go wrong? So, that always spells doom is coming, most likely.
That is true.
But she's fun. I like her. She's fun. I hope I don't regret saying that later, but I do like her.
Yeah, well, I will say, like, it is nice. It's the first like American friend of his that or girlfriend, I'll say. Well, was Emma? And Emma was in New York, but she died before the series started. Like she died in Swamp Thing. So I think she was supposed to be American because she was in New York painting, but I could be wrong. But I mean, if we've never really spent time with anybody who's American in John's friend group. Did you feel any? I mean, like, I'm sure there's some. Like if an American was going to write Hellblazer, it'd be like, what? And I'm sure like Brian Azzarello writes him later, and I wonder if Brits were like, that's not how he talks, or that's not how we talk. And I wonder if there was anything, did you notice anything that she said or did that didn't feel American?
No, I didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary. I thought she was kind of had that great like gung ho spirit, so I liked that.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was like, I feel like they did a good job. Maybe not like she didn't have that much talking lines and stuff, but when it was like her attitude more, like she is brash and she is like, I guess you'd say how other people view Americans. Like she's just going to tell you how it is kind of thing. So
I liked that. I thought that was a good character change, not that Kit wasn't able to take care of herself, but she also had sort of a different way of doing it. And I like the difference.
Yeah, I do too. And speaking of that, like after this whole Arthurian legend arc, there's a one shot about John and Danny specifically and their relationship. And this is interesting. There's not too many comics that have a plot that involves, a woman getting her period and what does that mean for a relationship at the time or whatever. As a woman, how do you feel about issues of comics that would focus on such a thing?
They've got balls. I'll give them that for daring to cross the threshold into, you know what? Let's talk about ladies and their flows.
Yeah. Yeah, but he does it like in a fun way because it's John and Rich and whatever. So they get to say the like dickhead things that, are the traditional
guys, always saying, oh, she's on the reg, and no, it's that time of the month, and oh, she's just being unreasonable because of her, crazy emotions and stuff.
Yeah, the vampire come and bite you or whatever they said. Like,
yeah.
I
had never heard that one, so that was funny.
Yeah, I thought some of them were funny as well. But yeah, like I gave them props as like, wow, you're gonna do this, huh? Okay. But then it also centers around like domestic abuse, which is a heavy topic as well.
Yeah, thanks for like putting that in there where we're going to explore a woman's body and the things and also she gets beat up a bit, like, oh, thank you for that. Great way to put them together.
When you were like listening to this, were you like, oh, wow, like they're going to go through these topics and they're going to put them together and like, do they pull it off by the end, do you think?
I think the punishment is a good way to go for a douche who likes to push women around because he feels inferior. And so what better way to make a man feel even more inferior is to put him in a place where he then becomes that which he is either afraid of or is, wants to control. So I thought the punishment was a great thing.
Yeah.
Nothing better than turning a guy who is woman into a woman, essentially. In fact, I hope that's what the ending means. I hope he went like full on, got boobs, lost his dick, and just, became a woman. I think that would be hilarious.
I think that's what they're insinuating because, he does like have breasts at the end. I think maybe they couldn't go. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if they couldn't go full or they wanted to leave it kind of open for interpretation. Because it was Vertigo and Vertigo had lots of crazy stuff in it. So it's not like that wouldn't have been the first trans character in Vertigo because Doom Patrol has, I think, a trans character. So like, or I guess it wouldn't, I don't know what the term would be. It's not, it's like he's not trans because he's involuntarily not wanting to, like he doesn't want to be that.
Yeah, it's like
or
a
whatever.
Forced reassignment.
Yeah, I guess whatever that would be.
Forced magical reassignment.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like, okay, so John had to employ some other magicians to help him out with this. What would you think of Jamma, the large Jamaican lady who voodoo priestess?
Oh, she was funny. I actually was kind of curious. I wonder what she wanted the ashes from his cigarette for. Like, is that for a spell or, you know, or just some sort of a magical thing she can hold over him? I thought she was a very intriguing character.
Yeah,
And
I thought so too.
I hope maybe he goes to get more, you know, things from her, spells maybe, or some help later on, unless she ends up being a one-off character, which, you know, can happen sometimes too. But I thought she was intriguing. It was a sort of a new way to bring in a different kind of magic, which I do like when they branch out from, instead of just, you know, John's kind of magic or, you know, book related magic. This was kind of more like a grounded, almost earthy sort of magic, which was cool.
Yeah, I thought it kind of reminded me of Papa Midnight because, you know,
Oh yeah, that's right.
he was Jamaican and he was doing
He
voodoo.
did the
Well,
same sort of
yeah, I think he
voodoo
was Jamaican.
stuff.
He was either Jamaican or Haitian, I can't remember. But like, yeah, he was doing similar things.
Yeah, I like when they employ other kinds of magic.
Yeah, yeah. I gotta ask, what do you think of my Jamaican accent?
Hey, you did the best you could,
Thank you.
and it was distinguishable from your regular voice. So
There you
know.
go. I was like, I don't know how to read this. This is gonna be terrible. I have to read it
You
as it
didn't
is.
go like you. I can tell that you weren't trying to make fun of how they were speaking. So
No.
you did the best you could without going into like a caricature. So I thought you did a good job.
Yeah, I was trying to like, I don't want to go into Miss Cleo territory, but I also have to say some of the words like they're written in that accent. So I kind of have to do a little bit of that. So yeah, I was like, hopefully it's not too bad. People think it's kind of good try. It's the old college try, Matt. That's that's what it was. Yeah, some of those, whenever accents happen, especially like Scottish or other ones, I'm like, okay, don't sound like Scrooge McDuck or something like that. like whatever my reference for this is, don't sound like that. Which can be hard sometimes because you want to like, that's the only way you know how to say that word or whatever in that accent. So, yeah, I was a little bit I was trepidatious about the about that accent, but I think it was fun. I think she's a really fun character to me too. She's just so like ready to fuck this guy up. I thought it was hilarious, and like her in the art, like her face, her smile while she's doing it is just like, oh, I'm so loving this. I can't wait to like fuck this white boy up. like he's a
Nice.
piece of shit woman beater. So I feel nothing bad about doing this to him. It reminded me of like Marv in Sin City when he's like, you know, the thing I love about hitmen, you never feel bad about whatever you do to them. Like, because they're pieces of shit. So yeah. And yeah, that's one nice thing about like having totally unrepentable bad characters is when stuff happens to them, you're like, yes, go harder, go as hard as you can. So, and I think that's why they introduced it, like in this episode with John and her, because also like John has to be a dick as part of the magic. Which I thought was funny. It's like he has to antagonize her. I thought she was I mean, I don't know about you. My wife is not the, like if I said the stuff that he was saying to her or not listening to her, like he was pretending to not do on purpose, she would be super pissed.
Oh, me too. I think that she probably, I would probably be more pissed than even she was.
Yeah, she
'cause,
wasn't pissed at
yeah,
all compared to what I've seen.
when I get into the horrible zone, tiniest, unbelievable tiny things will set me off and spiral out of, you know, control, feel bad about it later. But in the moment, I am just so unbelievably angry about the tiniest things. It's horrible. It really is horrible. I wouldn't have minded, I think, a little more. I mean, obviously, it's not the focus of, even though surprisingly, it's the focus of the issue, her going through this and what John is trying to do to help her. I wouldn't have minded a bit more on her side of it, because you are still essentially having it all be from men's perspectives, even though she is the focus.
Right. It's all from John's narration and stuff, right?
I wouldn't have minded just a little bit more about what she is going through. That would have been a nice thing for like maybe readers to understand who don't go through a menstruation cycle. I don't know if it was just because they don't know, and so they were writing it from this perspective. So because they didn't want to go into that territory and talk about it in a more personal way. So they were bold.
You open yourself to like landmines, stepping on a landmine if you're like, I think I'm going to like go on a ledge and like really talk about this thing. And if you get something wrong, or like women do have different experiences with it. So if you say one thing that doesn't gel with someone else's way of this happens, it can definitely be contentious potentially, and also like Hellblazer doesn't really, most of the issues, even like I can only think of like one or two issues, and they're usually like specials, like the Heartland special for Kit, where it's like it's from her point of view. Like because Hellblazer is literally about John, and it's narrated by John, like every issue is. It's kind of hard to be like, and now we're gonna switch the point of view.
I didn't mean like literally switch. I just wouldn't mind a little bit more from her, and like basically when he's he's pushing her, he's purposefully acting like a jerk. Just a little bit more of like, I'm in so much pain right now, John, or like, why can't you, just a little bit more from her side of things, so that you could feel just a little more like, she's really going through something. He feels really bad for doing this. He has to do it for the magic to work, but just a little bit more of a, make him feel a little bit worse about the fact that he has to, put her through more strain during this time.
Part of the thing is that he's like, I have to do this, but you can tell that he kind of is having fun. He's having fun doing it.
I wouldn't have minded just a little bit more on her side of things, of being like, God damn it, John, I'm in so much pain right now. Or, my cramps, or, I'm so hungry. I feel bloated. Just a few more little things to up her experience. And since they're focusing on this subject, just give it a little more realism from her on her side. I wouldn't have minded.
I think what they did with that, instead of focusing that part on her, they focused it on Greg, her boyfriend, who was all of a sudden getting those symptoms or whatever, right?
That's true, I guess. Like if maybe it was transferring to him, so she didn't quite feel as awful as she normally would, and all of a sudden he's getting the aches and pains.
I think that is what was happening.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like all those aches and pains. Like she's still there, but it's, or even like at the end of it, because like they're together in the cycle, like her and Greg. So I guess she's PMSing that week, and that's the precursor to whatever. So yeah, like that's why he's feeling all that stuff, and she is still feeling it a little bit because it's just transferring. It's not fully on him yet, but they could have done it a different way, better way of explaining it. So it is more from a woman's point of view of what she's feeling. But the only way I think that would be, could have been explored a little bit more was just like, she should have just gotten mad at him, like for real, where she's like, they have a big fucking yelling argument kind of thing because he goes too far or something.
I wouldn't have minded that. That would have been a little bit more to show just how stressed out and how, how angry the tiniest thing could make her, for sure.
Right. Well, and he is being the biggest dick he can possibly be at that time. So like, yeah. So I enjoyed this issue. I thought it was fun. I thought it was like an interesting one shot. Did you feel the same way, I guess?
Oh yeah. Of the three, it was my favorite, both because it is just a one shot, and after the Arthur stuff, it felt like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. And we got to like build on their relationship right after the Arthur stuff, right? Which she's just kind of a character where they introduce, oh, this is my new girlfriend. And there's a little bit of, stuff with them in it, but not too much. So this was nice to like get just kind of focused on them issue. So after that issue, we get the Widdershins story arc, which is issues 116 to 117. And this was an interesting arc. I mean, like, it's definitely not my favorite. I think kind of the writer's trying to do like hit heavy topics with this one and writing a story around the topic, which the topic would be the war going on in Bosnia and Serbia at the time. And so I think he's like, oh, I want to like throw that in there. And I have noticed there's some other issues later on, not in this run, but in Warren Ellis's run, where they bring this war up again in similar fashion, where it seems like they want to talk about a heavy subject, and then they kind of shoehorn a story around that subject, and it does not always work. I feel like this one was better than that one, but yeah, like, what do you think about kind of throwing these kind of heavy topics into stories? Do you think they need to have like a really solid like foundational story behind them in order for them to affect the right way, like to actually hit the right way? Or did you like get the sense that the war is horrible and everything that he's trying to say about the war is going on, and then the story was okay? Like, were you fine with that, or what do you think?
Well, I thought it was weird because they've delved into like heavy issues before, but I felt like there's more substance in other ways that they've done it that just didn't hit quite the same in this one, you know? Like it felt like they were trying to, but also pulling back from, because the weirdness surrounding the story was the main focus. And this was sort of maybe not an afterthought, but it didn't feel like it was really as in depth as it could have been to hit as hard as maybe they wanted it to. Because the whole weirdness with the ghosts and the dude running and then the chicken and all that stuff it felt like a lot of just like extra flashes, extra like pops of just like, ooh, weirdness, and then also the heavy stuff underneath. But hey, weird stuff. So it I don't know. It wasn't a favorite. I don't know if I like. Well, you know, I only liked really the 115, and then these other two stories were both sort of equally to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was as super effective as what they wanted, because by the end of it, I was more confused than anything, and not really like, oh, I enjoyed that. It was more like, oh, that was a story. Okay.
Yeah, I think you know, like they were like, how do we get? So we want to involve like this new character Slobodan, who's from Serbia, or I'm not sure if he's Bosnian or Serbian, but he's from that area or whatever. And you know, he's a refugee with his family. They just moved to England. They, I guess, have established a relationship with Rich, and that was like another thing that was interesting. And I think they kind of could have leaned into this a bit more, which is they hint that Slobodan might have done something bad in order to survive, or, you know, something he had to do over there in the war-torn country, right? Like during that time. Now that he's over here, he's you know, seems like a nice guy, a good guy, but like Michelle is very like, I don't know if he should be around the kids, and I don't know who this guy is really. And Rich just kind of invited him over, and even if there wasn't like, oh, it's a war-torn refugee, you know, guy, that's still kind of something you don't want to have happen as a wife or as a partner, is like your partner invites someone you don't know and you have children and stuff to come like stay over at your house for an extended period of time. So I think
like a guy he met in a bar who he's just like, oh, he's a cool guy. I drank with him for like a night, and then we're like best friends now or whatever. And like, how much do you really know about a person?
Right.
You know, very cool that he was being all good Samaritan and everything. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, I would have been like, no, he can't stay with us.
Yeah, me too. But here's the thing though, Michelle and Rich, you assume the kind of lifestyle they live, like this traveler kind of thing, they have people all over the time, like all over their place, all the time. Like they, you know, at least that's what I would think, is like everybody's welcome. It's kind of like a hippie commune or something. And the fact that she gets her hackles up about him a little bit suggests that she feels something that Rich isn't feeling about him, like, you know, like an intuition or something. Did you get that at all?
No, I hadn't really thought of the fact that they have a lot of people over with, them traveling and sort of doing the like hippie community sort of thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking like, go back to Fear Machine and it's like, I don't know who any of these people are, but sure, you can like stay with us. You could sleep with us. You could anything, yeah, I got kids, like Mercury, who is 13, is hanging around lots of men who they don't know, but they're just kind of like, yeah, we think you're cool.
Unless maybe it had to do with the fact that he was foreign.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, like, that's completely different than the types of people that she's used to giving shelter to, perhaps. I don't know if it's necessarily racism, but that could have been like a part of it, of her just not trusting someone who's an outsider, like not used to being part of the community, other travelers or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. I mean, I don't think they were implying that necessarily, but that could have been in the thought process of her, or like would have been, and possibly. But yeah, I just feel like Rich seems like, happy-go-lucky, no problem, and she has some kind of intuition about it. That I guess we find out, there is something to that. He did. I think he killed a child, right? That's what they say. He shot.
I'm not sure.
I think they showed like a memory from him. It was
when he was
something.
Possessed, right? Like,
yeah,
or
when he was
possessed, and he was talking about the horrible thing that he did. I don't know. I couldn't quite figure out exactly.
yeah, it was kind of confusing
did.
for sure. But like, and I hope it wasn't my fault on that. But
no,
I believe he did. He did like shoot a child in the process of a battle or whatever. That he was defending some street or whatever in this city, and the other side had like children as soldiers or something like that.
Oh, it's kind of like in Die Hard, where Carl, what's his name? Carl, there, the cop.
I think his name is Carl in it too.
It is Carl, right?
Yeah.
It's the thing. But he accidentally shot a kid, and that tortured him, because even though he was doing his job, he was like, he was just some punk kid and I shot him, So maybe it was something along that line, but not like literally, because he wasn't a cop, but he was obviously doing bad things, and then he shoots an innocent kid. So, and I just meant that sort of feeling of like, I was forced to do bad things, or I was in this and I was doing bad things, but that hit me so hard that I had to get out. And but he still carries that guilt.
Yeah, I don't even know if he was doing bad things. Like, I think he was, bad things being just war in general is bad. But I don't think he was doing like war crimes or something, and then shot a kid and was like, oh, now I feel sad. like I think he was just kind of like defending his home and area from invading forces, and then shot a child in the process of that war time stuff, So at least that's what I got from it. Because he seems like a perfectly nice guy. Doesn't have like, a genocidal bone in his body. So.
And he seems to genuinely regret the things that he did, as opposed to being like, oh, this one time, as opposed to all the horrible things he might have done otherwise. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't get that feeling from him either. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it seems like she was more just like, yeah, there was something about him that struck her as odd compared to anybody else they might have taken in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so one thing I do like about this story, I like the humor that Paul Jenkins interjects into things. So even if I don't like the story arc or some I preferable, or the one I prefer, like even the King Arthur stuff, there's like the whole Rich thing, which I think is funny. And then with this, like the concept of like what is causing this disturbance in the graveyard, I like that they play with it and you don't know what it is actually the problem until the last, the very end, where it's like, oh, this runner has been running backwards in every scene where like the ghosts are pissed off. We didn't realize that was the issue, because they show like people digging up the graveyard or digging up the road next to the graveyard. You think, oh, is that disturbing them? There's like John involved, so people are assuming John is, the reason for like the disturbances or whatever. And he's like, I swear to God, it's not me. Like I'm not doing this.
His presence alone is enough to cause the disturbance. It's like, no, it's actually not him.
Yeah, it was just like weird, kind of like blaming him for it, and it's not him. And then it turns out it is just someone, like the city changed, or the city or whoever, like the people who own the cemetery, changed the direction that they wanted the cars to go in through the pathways, and they changed the arrows, and now people are driving backwards as far as the ghosts are concerned, and so that's what's disturbing them. Or specifically the runner guy is running backwards as far as the ghosts are concerned. So and then that's like revealed, like there's some kind of, I don't know, fairy tale or, warning story that says, like, like legend that you don't go backwards in a graveyard, I guess.
See, I always took that as literally walking backwards, not like I'm walking in the opposite direction that people normally go. Because isn't he still just going around? So how, like, who, I don't know. It seems a little weird that it would be like, oh, everyone's always walked left and now he's running right. And then that's backwards. I always thought it was like literally walking, like backwards walking in a graveyard. So
right. Well, maybe it's because like the graveyard is fairly new and everybody buried there was buried as the signs were always pointing this way. So if you're going against them, the way that the ghosts or the beings, I'm just
even though
straws.
Even though the signs were changed, so you think that's kind of a weird thing for ghosts to be sticklers about. It's like, well, the signs changed, so we have to go the other way.
I don't know. They did that. That was just, a way to get the I think it was just a way to get Slobodon to get possessed. Like, we need him to get possessed by a ghost. How can that happen? What about this? Like, let me put a twist on this legend about walking backwards in a graveyard. And then also another thing I didn't understand why they threw that in here was the neighbors that are affected by this. Like there's some that are just like normal people, but then there's some that you're like, what? Like there's one person that's like ordering child pornography and like a very fucking fucked up little side story that never really has, like, it's just there and then it's done. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, this one had a weird feeling to it. Just the composition of the story to me didn't really make sense. Even by the end, I still felt like I don't really know what was the point. And then the whole chicken thing was just out of left field as well. Like, what? A literal ghost plucked dead, like, would normally be on your table, but it's walking around. Like, I don't know if you ever watched Courage the Cowardly Dog, but there was this one where like the space duck, I think, he dies, he gets turned into what looks like, a chicken that you would just cook and then put on the table, but then he ends up coming back to life as that chicken thing. So that just made me think of that cartoon and the weirdness of that.
Yeah, it's very Looney Tunes, right? Like, I'm sure there's an episode of Looney Tunes or something where a chicken, maybe like Chicken Hawk, gets cooked and then he's walking around like little chicken, or someone sees Tweety Bird as a chicken that's cooked,
Yeah.
something like that.
Wait, maybe he was a space chicken, not a space duck. I think I'm thinking of a different character that's a duck. I don't know. It's been a long time since I saw the cartoon. I'm getting my foul mixed up.
I get what you mean. Yeah, it's just kind of weird. I just feel like sometimes they throw that stuff in because they're like, it's John, or it's like Hellblazer. We can throw like whatever we want in here to be like shocking or like interesting. Like, this will add like a layer of like, what the fuck to it. And then we don't really have to go into it more than that. I feel like they do that sometimes just to be shocking
and weird.
Yeah. Because they can. I mean, it's a Vertigo title in the 90s. Why not?
Why not throw a random ghost chicken in there?
Well, ghost chicken and then, weird pedophile neighbor.
That's true, because they always have some sort of weird, pedophile stuff in there sometimes. So
we both thought that was a weird one. It wasn't like the best story, but it was there. And I agree with you. I think the one shot issue in between these two arcs is the best one, the one about Danny on her period. So
nice.
Yeah, I think
never thought you'd say that, huh?
No, I didn't. I never thought about it, but yeah, I guess. But that makes sense for this arc. I mean, especially since like I just don't care about Arthurian legend at all. So it's not my thing. But I will say the future issues coming up are pretty interesting and fun, and should be fun to talk about. So I think we'll do maybe a big one for the next ending. I think we can go from like issue 118 to 128, which is the last.
Ooh, that's a nice chunk.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this little chunk, because it's like, well, like a bunch of interesting stuff kind of ties together in the next one. So, yeah, I guess I didn't want to have like a bunch of one shots to talk about as well later on, like after this. So, I think I chose right. But yeah, we'll and that'll be the end of the Paul Jenkins run. So that'll be exciting.
Ooh.
So yeah, we'll come to that next time. And
big wrap up then.
Exactly. Was there before we go, was there anything I missed that you wanted to talk about, or anything you wanted to touch on?
Did you have a favorite cover?
I had two covers that stick out. I don't know, the favorite one, I guess, would be the Danny one, just because it's so striking with the hands and the heart and the blood and everything.
Oh yeah, that was definitely my favorite. I was going to say too.
Yeah. And then, but I also, the one that sticks out, like if I saw it on the stands, I'd be like, what's going on in this issue, is where King Arthur's about to kiss John. And it's like John looks surprised, like he either just got kissed or he's like unsure about this kiss that King Arthur's going to give him. So I just think that was kind of like funny, and it stands out. Like if I saw it, I would be like, what's going on in this issue? You know, like it would definitely catch my eye. So
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It is so weird that Arthur just randomly shows up at the end of that too. It's like, where has he been this whole time? He just shows up, like, you know, like when they have a celebrity guest star or something on a random TV episode, yeah. And it's just like, enter this guy. Oh, there he is. I don't know. That was weird.
Deus Ex
ending.
Arthur.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's all I had to say about that.
Yeah, like I said, they weren't the strongest arcs, but it was kind of, there were interesting things within them. And then that one shot was probably the strongest issue, or the most fun, at least. So yeah, next time we'll do issues 118 through 128. And with that, I think we'll see you guys on the next one.
See y'all later.
Bye.